Undercurrent, sponsored by John Hughes in Victoria Park. Choose your station before you choose your program. Absolutely.
Well, people tend to think our children are being a little bit supersized these days, but one school in Western Australia think they've come up with a solution, and at Searing has more.
Childhood obesity is a growing pandemic, and here in WA, a quarter of all primary school students are deemed overweight, and only half of those students are getting enough exercise each week. We're here at Belmont Primary School to see how they're tackling the problem.
The Kitchen Garden program, organised originally by Stephanie Alexander, and it was based in the eastern states. And from there, the program just grew to the other side of Australia. Schools had to apply for a grant and through the federal government because they funded the program. And we, at the end of 2009, wrote a grant and we received $60,000, which at Belmont Primary we decided to use it to convert one of our classrooms into a kitchen. What it means is that children are supposed to grow their own food, they're growing fruit and vegetables, and they learn all about seasonal crop rotation and all of that sort of thing, and looking after bugs and pests and weeding. And from there they harvest their food and then they take it to the kitchen and they cook with their own produce. When we first started the program, we had the first kitchen meals and then they were cooking. Some of them didn't want to touch the food to cut up and be part of it. Now they're all very willing to be in the groups and they're quite excited about when it's cooking day. Like today, they cooked a potato pizza. So some of them thought it's not what they're used to, but they ate the pizza and loved it. They're starting to learn to eat fresh foods, healthy foods. They're learning about balanced diets. They're learning how to make foods different.
We encourage the kids through physical activity. We have a whole school fitness program where we get the kids out in the mornings, try and get their heart rates up, and helps get some of that energy out so they're prepared for the day.
Tell me about your school fitness program.
Well, with everything else, it's kind of difficult sometimes to fit the 2 hours in, so that's why we encourage before school activity where we have swimming training and we have cross-country training. The fitness program as well counts towards our 2 hours a week, and all classes go out for at least an hour. So when we combine all of that, there's about 2 hours a week. In terms of it being enough though, I think kids need to be active after school as well. So there needs to be more activity. So building that enjoyment at school will then lead to kids hopefully competing after school or playing games with their friends outside.
At our school we have many programs besides the Stephanie Alexander one, because one of our priorities is health and well-being, which involves a whole lot of things as well as sport and activities. So within that we have programs like the Crunch and Sip program, where the children, they have a bottle of water on their desk all day, fruit that's been cut up, or they can have it whole and they eat that around about 2 o'clock, which helps with their brain food and their staying power for the rest of the day. Another one is that we belong to the Food Bank WA. We have the free breakfast program where we can go to Food Bank, and that helps the families that are unable to feed their children in the mornings with a healthy breakfast.
Encouraging parents to be educated on how to keep their kids healthy and how to encourage them to participate in sport. We have had workshops with our junior primary parents where we get them in and we talk about things that kids could be doing. The government does have a lot of good programs that you see advertised on TV, encouraging people to get out there and enjoy life and have a physical, 20 minutes a day of physical activity. So those sorts of things are a really good step towards keeping people healthy and encouraging them. We just need to keep promoting that and encouraging people to get out there and be active.
Hopefully other schools will take the initiative to tackle the issue of child obesity just as successfully as Belmont Primary School have. I'm Annette Searing for Undercurrent.
Well, next up, the Citizens Electorate Council, and this week they have a bug to bear with Mr. Wayne Swan.
Bruce Smokescreen. Wayne Swan attacks the fat cats, but it's his Labor Party who made them. And if you saw the news this week, Wayne Swan did something sort of bizarre. It caught everyone by attention because he announced that his inspiration for politics is the American singer Bruce Springsteen. Because Bruce Springsteen is a blue-collar man. He writes all these blue-collar songs about New Jersey and how it was people lost their jobs in the 80s and all this kind of stuff. I'm not going to go after Bruce Springsteen here. The point is, you've got to roll your eyes at this because this is nothing but fraud. Wayne Swan is like a Nazi collaborator who after the war tries to pretend he was the leader of the resistance. It's the Labor Party who created the fat cats that he's now attacking. And he might be attacking them, but only to try and shore up his base of political support, to try and get the unions and the traditional blue-collar Labor people think, yeah, Labor's still on our side. No, they're not. See, working Australians think that the Liberal Party are the party of big business and Labor Party is the party of the workers. From Hawke and Keating onward, it's the Labor Party that became the party of big business. And we've documented here this in all the treason dossiers we've done, you know, and I've been harping on about Bob Hawke and Paul Keating. That's where it started, the big, great Labor champions, right? What did they do? They stripped away every protection in our economy that created a bit of economic egalitarianism, and which actually wasn't its point, it just happened to do that, that made sure that we had a productive base, that made sure we had blue-collar workers. They stripped that away so they could create, remember that we've quoted him here, Paul Keating wanted it, the Wall Street of the South. And now they've got it. It's the single biggest industry in New South Wales is financial services. They created monoliths like Macquarie Bank, the millionaire's factory, and they created superannuation where they forced workers to forego pay rises and take it in the form of super instead, and then forced them to stick it in the market so that, and it's quite clear, it was very explicit, Keating wanted that money so Macquarie Bank could create a financial services industry. And now that financial services industry is, as part of the free trade and globalisation of the economy, is largely focused in facilitating the mining industry, which is just ripping the guts out of Australia and flogging it overseas so that these multinational miners can make the biggest profits in history. And we're going to talk about those profits coming up in the not too distant future. So this whole thing that Wayne Swan has been carrying on about is election propaganda that's just not true. The ALP is another Liberal party. That's what's happened.
Yeah. He said, you know, during this speech, he said that he was drawing inspiration. We need to draw inspiration from Australian history, from Australian culture, from literature. And he could have chosen any number of great ALP Labor Party figures.
Frank Anstey.
He could have chosen Charles Harper if he wanted to talk about literature, about Australian poetry, any number of inspiring examples. And
yeah, no, they're desperate and they're about to be sent, perhaps extinct politically. They know that, and they're desperately trying to pull the wool over people's eyes again. Anyway, that was just had to be said, you know, so that we could clear the air a little bit on this poison that's coming from Wayne Swan.
Next up, Nick Hayes checks in with our very own Perth Wildcats.
Good morning everyone, and thank you for being here. On behalf of both Healthway and the Perth Wildcats, I'm very excited and pleased to announce a 3-year partnership with Healthway to promote the Alcohol Think Again message in what I believe is the next step for the Perth Wildcats.
It's $1.5 million over 3 years. How big an investment is this for Healthway compared to other investments that it makes in local sport?
It is a big investment, but you know, Healthway targets its investments really to look at who it's going to reach. So we'll invest in the big codes with significant amounts of money because we know we're reaching out into the community, into kids, into young people, into Indigenous kids. It's really about targeting the money, supporting participation and involvement in sport, but making sure that that sport is around healthy messages as well.
It's a big deal for us. We're not a multi-billion-dollar industry. This is a principal partnership, so it is the biggest partnership or sponsorship we have with any organisation. People aspire to be a Wildcat, and so we think this message is a great fit. And we hope that by partnering with Healthway and by promoting the message of Alcohol Think Again, we can change lives, because that's why we exist.
And we know that the Wildcats are going to be playing in Northbridge. They're going to be playing in the heart of town. It's a big problem, alcohol in town. Is this something that you're seeing as a way to combat that?
Perth, unfortunately, Western Australia has the highest rate of alcohol consumption in Australia. And Australia in general has a very high rate of alcohol consumption per head in the world. And we know that something like 5 young Australians under the age of 25 die every week due to hazardous drinking, overconsumption of alcohol. That happens right here where we're standing today in Northbridge, and none of that is acceptable. It needs to be turned around. And maybe if the Wildcats coming back into the city with their Alcohol Think Again message, with their pushing back against alcohol marketing when they're playing sport, maybe we're starting to see that change. We know that the mums and dads in the community of WA want that change, and slowly but surely we'll make it happen.
Wildcats are leading the way with the message. Are you expecting other clubs to take on similar sponsorships?
I hope so. I hope so. This, as I said, this is not a moralistic altar boy type program. Elite sport requires you to have minimal or no alcohol input when you're playing. So the message is a very easy and simple message, because we already live this message. And it's not just in elite sport. You know, if you want to perform at the workplace or at school, the worst thing you can do is binge drink and lose options.
We're still questioning on the stadium, and you're pretty confident that you're going to be playing there, but how's the season looking for the Wildcats?
We think we've got a great group of guys who are already showing their commitment to working very hard every day, doing the 1%ers, and we hope that will result in the results that we've always wanted.
Nick Marvin, thanks for joining Undercurrent.
Always a pleasure, thank you.
Who's your favourite Wildcat?
I think all the Wildcats are my favourite players because of the Alcohol Think Again message they've adopted and their sense of responsibility, but Sean Riddich and Damien Martin, definitely.
Rosanna, thanks for joining Undercurrent.
Thank you.
Well, that brings us to the end of tonight's episode. Thank you for your company this evening, and you know the drill. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Hopefully you will be too. I'm Christy Mulliga. Have yourself a great week.
Undercurrent, sponsored by John Hughes in Victoria Park. Choose your station before you choose your program. Absolutely.